Hey guys, so welcome back from spring break. This is the first video lecture just in case you didn't make it back on Monday. All right, and we're going to talk about solving quadratics by factoring. So make sure this is in your journal table of contents and it's the header of your journal. Pause anytime you need to because I'm moving on. All right, so what are we solving for exactly? Well, we're solving for quadratic roots. And quadratic roots are x-intercepts of a graph of a parabola. Okay? So again, it's the x-intercepts. That's what all it is what quadratic roots are, x-intercepts of the parabola. All right, and it's also called the zeros of the quadratic function, the solution. All right, that's why when we're just talking about solving, you're actually finding the solution, which is just finding the x-intercepts of a parabola. Okay, now if you look up here, you're gonna draw this out. Okay, what you see uh, on the video, and we're just going to show you, just do a little basic demonstration, right? So with parabolas, we can either have two solution, one solution, or none at all, right? And so just kind of a little sketch, if I have something that looks like this on my paper, you can see that I have two solutions. I have two x-intercepts right there, okay? Then one solution, well, that's where the vertex is on the x-axis. All right, and so I only have one solution because then everything is going to be either above or below that vertex, right? Depending on whether this is a min or max. This one that I just drew is a min, right? And it has only one solution. And then also we could have something that looks like this, where the vertex never hits the the vertex never reaches the x above the x-axis or below it, and so the parabola just never reaches the x-axis, right? And this one, the vertex is below the x-axis and it's facing down, so it'll never hit the x-intercept. So no solution. All right. And let's go over the steps of factoring. So remember we did all that factoring polynomials. Well, this is where it's going to come into play, okay? So very first thing we do is set the quadratic equation equal to 0. So the quadratic equation should be equal to 0. Then we factor the left side, okay? And we set each factor equal to 0 and solve each factor for 0. Now that may seem confusing right now, but we'll show you what I mean. And then you write your answers using curly braces. And so it should look something like this. And the reason why we do that is because we don't want to get them confused with coordinates. All right, let's try some examples. So up here you see I have x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. All right, my very first step is make sure everything is equal to 0. It is. Now I want to factor. And so remember, you got to remember your factoring steps here. So the very first thing I'm looking for, is there a greatest common factor that I can pull out? No. Is the number in front of x squared, is it 1? Yeah, so I don't use the slip and slide method. I'm just going to factor. I'm going to look at what's the second sign. It's plus, so everything is going to be plus plus because the very first sign is plus. All right, and so it's going to be x plus. It's going to be x plus. Now, I need to figure out a factors of 3 that will add up to 4. Well, hopefully you think 3 and 1, right? And so remember, this is all equal to 0, right? So let me ask you, what happens if I put negative 3 as x? And especially what happens in the first parentheses. Well, hopefully, negative 3 plus 3, what does that add up to? It's going to be 0, right? And then I don't even have to do the second parentheses because anything multiplied by 0 is going to be 0. And that's why we factor define the roots, right? Because that's what we're looking for, is when this equation will equal 0. And so now I'm going to say x plus 3 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. And all I did was I broke out the parentheses and set them equal to 0, right? And so now I'm just solving for x. So negative minus 3 on both sides. I get x equals 3. No, sorry, negative 3. Subtract negative 1 on this one, and I get x equals negative 1. And so my solution here to this equation is negative 3, negative 1. That's where the quadratic equation will hit the x-intercept. And so you can kind of see over here, just a very rough, this is where that's where it's going to kind of what it's going to look like. You can even put it in your calculator, y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3, and you can see that's a very basic what it looks like. All right, let's do another one. All right, so now for 2, again, x squared minus 10x plus 21 equals 0. They've already gotten me, they already started me off with it equaling 0, so step 1's complete. Now I need the factor. Is there any greatest common factor here? Nope, there isn't, so we're just left with factoring. So, again, I look at the second sign. Plus tells me that they're all going to be the same sign. The very first sign tells me they're all going to be negative. So I'm going to have x minus, x minus. All right, and then I need to figure out a factor of 21 that will equal, that will add together, that equal 10. Okay, and if you don't know, you can always put it in your calculator, go to y equals, put 21 divided by x, then go to the table and search for the integers there, and it will give you the factors. Okay, so hopefully you kind of figured out, though, it's going to be 7 and 3 that will add up to 10. Okay, and again, I'm just going to use this little T chart because this is still equal to 0. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out where x minus 7 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. Well, this time I'm going to add 7 on both sides. I get x equals 7. Over here, I'm going to add 3 on both sides. So x equals 3. And so my solution is 3 and 7. Okay. All right. Let's do some more. Okay, this one looks a little bit different, and that's good because we want to practice with things that look different. And you may be wondering, well, I'm missing C here. I don't have a C. Well, that's okay, because do I have a greatest common factor now? And the answer is yeah. They both have x's, so I can pull out x on both sides. And so I'm left with x, and x minus 8 equals 0. Okay. And then I'm just going to split those apart and see which of those factors equals 0. Well, of course, x equals 0. And that's already solved for us. X minus 8 equals 0. This one we'll have to figure out. We add 8 to both sides to cancel out this minus 8, right? And we get x equals 8. So my solution here is 0, 8. All right, so here we go. Number 4. Now this one does have a number in front, right? So I got to think, can I take a greatest common factor here? And well, look, I got 2, 10, and 8. So the greatest common factor here is 2. So I could take out 2 from everything, and I'm left with x squared plus 5x plus 4. And that's going to equal 0, right? Okay, so then I'm just going to factor what's inside the parentheses. So I have 2, and that's going to be x, and I got to look. Second sign's plus, first sign's plus, so x plus, right? All right, and then I need to find factors of 4 that will add up to 5. So 4 and 1. Okay, and so when I'm looking at this, you're going to maybe be asking, well, what do I do with that 2? You're just ignoring it right now, because anything that sets anything inside the parentheses to 0, that's going to be our solution. So x plus 4 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. We need to figure out what x makes those zeros. And so for the very first one, I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. I'm going to get x equals negative 4. The second one, I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides to get x alone. And it's going to equal x equals negative 1. And so my solution here is just negative 1, negative 4. Oh, don't want to use just the parentheses. I want to use the curly bracket. There you go. And if you're wondering, well, this should be negative 4, negative 1. And the reason why I do that, you don't have to exactly, is because I want to put the smallest solution, then the largest solution. So I like to go in order. All right, and let's look at number 5 now. Well, again, I have something in front of x squared. The very first thing I should think, can I take a greatest common factor? Well, I have 6, 5, and 1. Unfortunately, no. Okay, so you got to think slip and slide method. Well, the 6 slips to the 1, and so now I'm going to have x squared plus 5x plus 6 because I multiplied the 6 and 1. All right, and now I'm going to start factoring like normal. Again, I got a plus for the second sign and a plus for the first, so I'm going to have x plus. Okay, and a factor of 6, that'll add up to 5. I hope you think 3 and 2. Well, now you might be thinking, oh, yeah, we're going to just go ahead and do that T-chart. Nope, wait. We're doing slip and slide. We've done the slip, now we need to do the slide. What I slipped over, I got to divide everything, or I got to divide the numbers by that number. So x plus, so 3 divided by 6, 2 divided by 6. All right, I need to reduce those fractions. So this is x plus 1/2. Okay, this is x plus 1/3. And then the denominators slide in front of the variable. And so what I'm going to end up getting is 2x plus 1 and 3x plus 1. And those equal to 0. And that's when I do my T-chart. So 2x plus 1 equals 0. 3x plus 1 equals 0. All right, and it's just like we've been doing, except we're going to have an extra step. So subtract 1 on both sides for the very first one. I get 2x equals negative 1. And then I got to divide by 2. So my x value here is going to be x equals negative 1/2. All right. Same thing on the right side. Subtract 1 on both sides. I get 3x equals negative 1 divided by 3 on both sides. I'm left with x equals negative 1/3. Okay, so my answer here is negative 1/2, negative 1/3. So yes, you can have fractions as your solutions. All right, let's look at number 6. Well, you got to remember, hey, I got to rearrange this because I needed an ax plus bx plus c equals 0 form, right? And so what I have to do here is I got to add 5 to both sides, and that way I get 12x squared plus 32x plus 5 equals 0. Now, it could be anything over there on the right side. You just need to put it all to the left, okay? So that everything equals 0. And again, I got something in front of 12, or sorry, in front of x squared. That's 12. So trying to look to see if there's any greatest common factor. I can't pull an x out of 5 because it doesn't have an x. And that's all I can really do, or so I really can't pull out a greatest common factor. So it's slip and slide method time. So 12 slips to 5. It's going to be x squared plus 32x. And 12 times 5 is 60. Okay. And so I want to find common factors. And remember, I got to look. So it's going to be x plus again. Okay, because the second sign is plus, the very first sign is plus, so it's plus plus. So I'm doing 60 divided by x on my calculator. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm going into y equals. I'm going to do 60 divided by x, and then I'm going to go second graph, which will pull up the table. All right, and so when you're looking at the table, where both columns are integers, those are factors. So I'm looking for two factors that will add together to equal 32. And well, it's going to be 2 and 30. Okay. Now, again, I'm not done yet because what I have to do is divide by 12. All right. I'm going to reduce those fractions, so it's going to be x plus 1 over 6. X plus, well, let's see. If I divide by 6, I'll get 5 over 2. And so that's the smallest there. And then I slide the denominators in front of the variables. So I'm now got 6x plus 1 times 2x plus 5. And those are my factors. All right, do a t-chart. So 6x plus 1 equals 0. 2x plus 5 equals 0. Subtract 1 on both sides. 6x equals negative 1. All right, divide by 6, and I get x. X is going to equal negative 1 over 6. All right, right side. Subtract 5 on both sides. I'm left with 2x equals negative 5. Divide by 2. And I'm left with x equals negative 5 over 2. Okay? And that's my solution. Negative 1 over 6 and negative 5 over 2. Okay, and so that is going to end it for us. If you have any questions still, you can come in and start working and start asking those in tutorials, okay? All right. See you guys later.